I pen poetry with passion, purposely pushing purpose to propel paralyzed psyche from perpetual pain to power. Picture this: snapshots of moods, emotions, creatively captured with an aesthetic poetic syntax, painted into powerful portraits, masterfully mastered masterpieces conceived by the stars, birthed from my soul. What's up? I watch a lot of YouTube. I probably watch YouTube more than I watch regular TV, like any TV shows or apps or anything of that nature. Like I'm really infatuated with and addicted to watching mostly thought-provoking type stuff. So like I'm really tuned into a lot of the thought leaders of today. I feel like they deserve their flowers. Okay, so I feel like they're making smart, cool science and things that we thought were like boring in school. Well, some people thought. I've always loved science, but they're speaking in scientific language and mathematical language and all of that type of stuff, man. So like I feel like it's very important that we give these brothers and sisters our attention and watch and listen to what they have to say. I mean, at this point, entertainment has to take a back seat to education, I would think. I think education should be well above entertainment. Not saying cast aside entertainment, but I mean, I really respect everything that they talk about. I was watching this bill between 19 Keys and Billy Carson today. I still have to finish it, but super dope conversation.
But it's an interesting model and it's an interesting idea when you're talking about measuring progress of a people that have been trapped under another people's thumb. Yeah. You understand me? And working to increase the aggregate efficiency of our output. Yeah. What we put out based on the energy that we get back. Yeah. And how do we increase that as a people, right, for a revolution? Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I'm 19 Keys, so I break things down into 1-9. Yeah. But A is numerical 1 and I is numerical 9. And that 19 is representation of male, female, conscious, subconscious, you understand me? God itself, because everything is between that 1 through 9. Gotcha. Collapse back into a 1.
We could change the way we think and see and feel about ourselves just by speaking out loud. Like you said, meditation, and I love travel. That's all I do is travel nonstop. You already know that. That's going to enlighten and open up, broaden all your horizons. It's going to make you see things from other perspectives and understand. It's going to raise your consciousness. Traveling, I tell people all the time, leave your zip code.
I have to go back and do some research and just so I can follow along a little bit. But I love that challenge. I love those challenges of having to take down notes and go back and research it. Nothing like it, man. We are past the point of diagnosis. Staggered consciousness moving in different directions is counterproductive and results in a steady prognosis. The root is apparent. We are surrounded by bruised fruit that lay close to trees from which they fell and hang us from. Abandoned. Orphans lost in a house built by bloody hands, constructed on the strong, welted backs of our resilient ancestors. Abandoned. Searching for an identity. Unlearn, relearn, and unearth buried treasure. Hidden colors. Applied knowledge is our fortress of solitude. Responsibility is a heavy load. So in this moment, I sit still and scream in silence for the moment. That piece was inspired by social issues that I observe and have observed over the course of my life since I've been cognizant of things that are happening and things that are rehappening. I know that's probably not a word, rehappening, but reoccurring, right? It's almost like we live in a rerun. This TV show that we live in, it's been the same characters over and over, just different avatars. And right now we're past the point of diagnosis. We're always diagnosing and saying what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with society, what's wrong with people. And at this point, I think we are past the point of diagnosing those ills. We know what's wrong. If you go to the hospital and you've been diagnosed with a particular disease or what have you, or illness, and the doctor keeps telling you what's wrong with you, at some point you're going to say, all right, so results, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? And that's where I think we are in society. It's like and I don't want to use the word complain, because to complain kind of sounds like you're downplaying the problem. So I won't say complain, but it's past the point of us continuing to diagnose the ills of society. We have to figure out how to fix it. And so staggered consciousness, moving in different directions, is counterproductive. I see a lot of infighting on the internet, especially. People arguing about who's the smartest, who's the brightest, who knows the most. People become aware of the world at different times. It's not cool to downplay or degrade people because of the lack of being conscious, their lack of consciousness. So that the fighting because of that is counterproductive, because then it creates an atmosphere where there's no real learning going on, no real growth, no enlightenment. And so it's counterproductive. It goes the opposite way of what we intend for it to be. And then it results in a steady prognosis, right? We just keep on going back to the same diagnosing of the ill, right? So we just got to get past that. The root cause is apparent, sort of a play on words with the parent, a parent, generational, but it's also kind of obvious if you open your eye. We can see why we are where we are. I mean, it's a journey, and we're surrounded by bruised fruit that lay close to trees from which they fell and hung us from. So that again is pointing to the generational discord. The generational discord. We're surrounded by bruised fruit. People who are taught to hate, mainly racism. They say the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. The fruit that is causing the hurt is bruised, right? Because hurt people hurt people. So the bruised fruit that lay close to the trees, the racists that come from races, abandoned. Sometimes it feels like we've been abandoned. I mean, we were abandoned in this country. If you look at the government, there's not been many, if anything's passed in legislation for the protection of people of color, right? So we feel abandoned in that regard. Orphans lost in a house built by bloody hands. So we built this country. This is our house. Anybody who says go back to Africa or whatever have you, no, we built this house. This is our home. But we're orphans in our own home to a degree. And it was built by bloody hands. Our ancestors who built this country with blood trickling down their hands, so to speak, and the blood on the hands of those who committed the atrocities. So they had a hand in building the country too, in a roundabout way, by having others build it. But the blood is on their hands. So those are the bloody hands. Built by bloody hands, constructed on the welted backs of our resilient ancestors. Abandoned. Even though we built this house, we were abandoned. We were pushed to the side. who are abandoned now searching for an identity. It's what causes a lot of the infighting. It's what causes some people to. I was watching a video the other day on Sonetta TV. Shout out Sonetta TV. It was a debate between brother Jabari Osaze and Taz. And the topic was, should Black people in America connect with their African roots? And I think that is very important to note, because understanding who you are, your identity, gives you strength. There's not one demographic in America that doesn't identify with where they came from. Irish, Scottish, all of that. I just heard a conversation in Ace Hardware the other day where guys, some Caucasian guys were talking about their heritage, Scottish. And I think that's important. Unlearn, relearn, and unearth buried treasure. So our identity is buried treasure. Once you find it, once you unearth it, and then unlearn what we've been taught, by and large, and as far as our identity goes, in school, where they tell you that we started at slavery, unlearn that, and then relearn the truth. Unearth that buried treasure. Hidden Colors. So kind of a play on the documentary, but Hidden Colors is basically our identity as we learn it, our roots, tracing back to where we, our ancestors lived, where they were far more than slaves, where they were royalty, kings and queens, things of that nature. Applied knowledge. See, people say knowledge is power. I don't believe that, because you can have all the knowledge in the world. If you don't apply it, it's worthless. So applied knowledge is power. And applied knowledge is our fortress of solitude. Responsibility is a heavy load, right? Heavy is the head. What happens to a lot of leaders? They're assassinated. They're assassinated. They're ridiculed. They're knocked down. So responsibility is a heavy load. And so what happens to a lot of people who know something, who want to say something, who want to speak out? They scream in silence. So when I put this on pages, I was at a point where I was like, man, should I really step out and start speaking? Should I step out and say something? Should I step out and say what I know, despite fear of any type of retribution and persecution? And at that moment, I said, yeah, I will. I'll sit silent for the moment. But there would be a time where I would no longer be silent. And this is that time. See that? All about that Bali today. As I always say, success travels in circles, man. Support your people unapologetically, unconditionally. Thank y'all for rocking. I love y'all. Peace.